So
Anyway,
happy birthday, everybody. We're 20
happy birthday.
years old.
I know. It's terrific. So I'm going to do how WAGS really got started. I was working for another company that had service dogs, and they were from Michigan, I think. And I was just a foster home for those dogs. And we took the dog over that Christmas, which was Christmas of 2003, to a school. The dog was highly trained, and we took it around to classrooms and we did a speech, my husband and I. He was a special education teacher, and I, a dog trainer. And did a speech about if you see a dog in a service code and what it meant, and taught the little kids to come up and take a candy cane out of a basket that the dog was taught to carry. And at the end of the day, my husband Eddie said, let's go into the special needs classroom, which did not thrill me at all. I was really not interested in doing that. And I told him, you go ahead, you take the dog and do the speech to the kids. And he dragged me in by my ear, literally. And I sat and saw these children in special needs classroom with a variety of disabilities and challenges in their life. Be attracted to the dog, be calmed by the dog, be joyful about the dog being in the room. And when we got home, I said to Eddie, I'd rather be working as a volunteer for an organization that was doing this for kids. Because at that time in 2003, all of these organizations were only doing it for adults or children, they would say 18 years and up. And I looked online and could not find one, not just in Ohio, but anywhere in the country that was doing this service dog thing for children. And like in a movie, Eddie said, we can do this. And we started with one dog, which was not your dog, Lisa, but that's the second dog. The first dog was the story begins with we had no money. We only had time. And I went to a rescue group and on consignment took out a dog that I thought was going to be great and brought him home. We named him Uno because he was going to be the first dog for working animals giving service, this name we had thought up. And the dog came home and about 2 hours later bit Eddie in the leg. And we took him back. And then I looked online and in the newspaper and found an ad for a dog that someone had rescued and thought deserved a good home. And I drove out to meet Lisa. Didn't know Lisa at the time, but it was a black dog that had been wandering in the street from a neighbor of hers who was not taking good care of it. And we sat and talked. And how old were you, Lisa? I don't even remember. 22? I don't know. You were a kid.
We were all kids back
then. We were all
then.
kids back then.
I heard Maddie, so maybe I was like 23.
Okay. And I bought the dog from Lisa for what she had put into it for getting it spayed. I think it was $250 or something. It was really
Something
cheap.
like that.
Yeah. And took it home. And Lisa said, oh, by the way, we are golden retriever breeders. This was a little black mixed breed, whatever it was, from across the street. Do you remember that dog?
Yeah, Susie.
Yeah. Who?
Susie.
Sophie. Susie. I took the dog.
Buddha first.
Hmm?
I thought you had Buddha first.
No, No, Buddha was after Susie. There was Uno and Susie and Buddha. Susie didn't make it as a service dog, though I have to tell you, she was the best retriever I think we've ever had. She could pick up a dime off the floor with her tongue and put it in your hand. We didn't know, however, because she had been through some bad situations in life, how noise sensitive she was. And she really couldn't stand noisy distractions. We were at home and there was a parade going down the street and she was tied around the bottom of one of our chairs watching the parade down the street in Berea, Ohio. Mm-hmm. And she nearly pulled me down the street to get away from the marching band. But be that as it may, she was in a wonderful home. And the next dog we got was Buddha.
AJ.
No, that was the WAGS dog. We tried Buddha for, we got Buddha and AJ at pretty much the same time. And Buddha was actually our first placement. And AJ, one of Lisa's breedings, was the second. Yeah.
That's a start. I saw that picture of Buddha. Remember the Fosters? It was Adam, what's his name? The fireman and his wife. Thank you. Adam Hudak and his wife. and they were
Right.
the ones that introduced us to the mud volleyball tournaments. Were you guys? You were pouring beers with us that day, yeah?
Right.
Yeah, that was a fun day. That was like our first big fundraiser that we were involved with, was the mud volleyball stuff, other than the cornhole
That was somebody
tournaments.
else's that was doing it for us. It all started very
Mhm.
small. It really started with, once we were
The bag.
WAGs officially, Eddie and I would sit on weekends at PetSmart, or Pets R Us, I think it was, around the corner from where we live, with a table and a puppy under our arm and a box for donations. And if we made $50 in a day, we were thrilled because we could buy a bag of dog food. And that's really, really how it started, was $50.
I just remember signing the paperwork and coming home from college, and every single time having like a thing to do or an event to work. And I never complained about pouring a beer at a mud volleyball tournament, or being the dealer at a Texas Hold'em thing, or selling tickets at a court. I mean, it was always something.
Yeah,
I
it was
mean,
fun, and it was tiny. It was, how big could we be, never even crossed my mind. It honestly didn't. And it was quite a while before I realized that doing this one dog at a time was going to get us nowhere quick. It was going to get us nowhere quick. And then we got a call from Women's Pre-Release.
yeah. What was your first memory, Elise?
I remember all that.
No, really. What's your first memory?
I didn't prepare for that.
Sitting in the grass with me,
No,
talking
honestly,
about how you
it was
wanted to be.
honestly when Wendy
Yeah.
came out. It was honestly when Wendy came out
Yeah.
to get Susie, and yeah, and we ended up actually, the reason you got AJ very shortly after Susie,
Yes, I did.
because
You
we just had
said-
leftover puppies. We had
You did,
leftover
and
puppies.
And you said at that time, you probably could be donating a puppy once a year from your litters. That was
We
20 years
donated-
ago. And
We
we got,
donated Buddy afterwards.
Yeah.
And AJ, Buddy, and we had quite a few.
They
Quite a
didn't
few.
expect to
Oh,
get
yeah,
that
right,
big either.
quite a
Yeah,
few.
right.
You were very generous. Your family was very generous. It really got us going in terms of having dogs to train. And once we were in the first prison, we needed dogs because we had people who wanted to do the training, and that was all great. Yeah. So who's next? Lisa has to be next, because none of you, this is how we met Josh. Was the
Yeah,
first, well, not at the women's pre-release. Josh was not.
Were you in the
We were
women's
there
pre-release,
first.
Josh?
No.
It's
That was an
2024.
odd experience, being in a women's correctional facility, because our history is really in men's correctional
That's a
facilities.
big question that I get even to this day when I'm doing speaking engagements is, well, what about women's prisons? Why don't you do women's prisons?
Well, I think
We were successful in the women's prison. I
We
mean,
were.
with but we also were working with different dogs in the women's prison, because even that early on, we were also still trying to get
Rescuing.
rescue dogs, because I know like Bonnie or Betty or Boo Boo, whatever that dog's name was, that started with the
Jackson,
B.
there was a Jackson, there was a whole litter that we got
That
from.
was in North Central.
That was in North Central. Jackson and
Yeah.
Louie were in North Central,
Right.
but we had Toby was in
Yeah.
the women's prison. And I mean, we did have failures, but I kind of blame it a little bit too on the fact that we got rescue dogs that we didn't have a history on.
Right.
And so they just, they weren't bad dogs. They went
No.
and were fabulously trained. And I mean, Toby went on to do great things with
Yeah.
an adult. He just wasn't a
Right.
child dog. And
Right.
so I think that, we just didn't have the right dogs in there either. We were still starting out looking for dogs. We were giving the rescue, we gave the rescue a real chance before we started going to, let's go to a
Breeders.
breeder that properly socialized them right from the beginning.
Right.
And know what we're getting right from the beginning,
And know what they
So,
were going to be when they grew up. And I think that's
Absolutely.
probably a big feature, is rescue dogs were great, but
Yeah.
rescues can place puppies. They can't place older dogs. And we had to start with puppies, and
Right.
to know what they were going to turn into, like how big they were going to be, and what we needed: square-headed, soft expression dogs that kids could take to school, that were going to be about the size of the arm of a wheelchair of a child. And who knew what some of these mixed, we didn't know. And so we
Right.
had to,
We didn't know what they were mixed with.
yeah. And I think overall, this conversation about the beginning, is really about how we learned more as it went on. It wasn't that anything was wrong with the dogs or wrong with what we were doing. We just learned better ways and better ways to pick dogs and better avenues to train dogs and everything we were doing wrong. Everything
Right.
we were doing wrong as we grew up. Yeah.
Heck,
Live
I
and
feel
learn.
like we're still learning.
Yeah, well, sure. I think all the time. But and I also think over the years we learned about who our trusted supporters were going to be and who were not. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's any company, any business, any endeavor. You just sort of weed through growth. And
I'd like to think that that's any business, but maybe this is me being ooey gooey. I don't know if every business can say that they have the core of who they are, meaning this little group. You too, Nick. This little group. But even you, I mean, Nick, you've been with us for all intents and
Long
purposes
time.
for at least 10 years.
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, for to
for the
say
youngest person in the room, for the youngest involvement in the room to be only 10 years.
that's saying something.
Saying
Mhm.
That's, and I mean, that's when, even on our worst day, I love each and every person here.
Okay.
You guys really are my family. And there's no, that I don't think that anybody, that just anybody can say that. I think our Barley crew could say that. That's something very special. That's
They
all I'm
helped
trying
us
to say.
when others were not.
Yeah.
Ah, the Bachelorettes.
Oh my God, that was fun.
Ah, the Bachelorette.
Oh, so that's when you really
Josh,
rang.
look at Josh. How fun was it, Josh?
Best fundraisers ever.
I think that was one of your first fundraisers, wasn't it?
No.
It was. I think
Yes.
it
No.
was.
No,
No.
my first one was spending the night at Wendy and Eddie's home, and we did a tailgating party, and we had to get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning.
Ah,
The
yeah.
Barley House stuff downtown. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Hug a puppy or kiss a puppy, whatever that was. $5, hold the puppy. Fun.
Puppy
It was the
kissing.
Browns home opener. It was the tailgate for the Browns home opener
Right.
that we still do now. So
Well,
how many
I
years
do.
was, yeah, you do.
I do because
We-
Wendy and Lisa's faces when we used to go downtown.
We would be
Lisa,
like-
I love you. You are such a protective mommy of those puppies that anytime a drunk person would come near one of the dogs, you're like,
I'm gonna kill him.
I'm gonna if you
And we used to run out the back gate when the band came through. What they about halfway through the event.
they don't really do bands anymore.
good.
No, I vividly remember the Bachelor raffle, at least for you, Josh. It's my favorite anecdote. 'Cause
No,
that was
We need to leave the anecdote alone. No. How do you feel about us sharing that on camera? We can cut
You
it
can
out.
share anything you want.
No.
well then.
How much
No,
money
that-
did you bring in for Josh?
Oh,
I'm sorry, what?
He asked how much money he got off of me. I said I wasn't in it. It was just a lot of drunk women bidding
Lot of
on
drunk women.
actual.
A
Oh,
lot of drunk women.
if I had been allowed to raffle Josh off, I'm sure I would have made a pretty penny, but
Yeah.
Lisa wasn't allowing that.
I don't think anybody was allowing that. It's too funny.
No.
No, we were using as one of the breaks in the activities, a video that we had made at
North Central.
North
It
Central.
was the video that preceded the one that we
Okay.
show now. It was very
Mhm.
documentary style, but it was made by a crew in 2007, 2008 with the guys of
talking.
North Central. And
Yeah.
part of it was, and this is what I was found guilty of, and this is what I was found guilty, yada, yada. It showed everybody's face. And so what these people in this room saw was a 25-year-old Josh in blues. And there was one woman who looked up and came over because Josh and Lisa and this group of volunteers were all selling
taking
raffle
money and
tickets.
selling raffle tickets. They
And
were
this
taking
one
cash.
woman came up to Wendy and said, I just gave this guy $20. Is that okay?
I said, yeah, he works for WAGS. Okay, he works for WAGS now. It's all right. Don't worry about it. That was funny. You're not laughing. It was very funny at the time.
It was funny. That
It
was,
was.
I still.
Not at the time, but now you can look back and laugh. At the time, you were like
Some distance.
out of the room.
I mean, Eddie at his worst. He was on oxygen and everything else. And
know.
every time he seen me, he told that story. and he was laughing so hard. I think Wendy kicked me out of the house. Literally, she was like infuriated with me, like,
You're
you
gonna
gotta
kill
go
him.
now. I'm like, it's
You're
not
gonna
my
kill him with the
fault."
story, right? I know.
Laughing.
It's too
Yeah.
funny.
See, I'm sorry, I'm only my daddy's daughter. I still get a kick out of
I
that story
know.
too. I love you, Shway. It's just,
It's too funny. I know.
it is.
So from there, I don't know, fundraisers sort of grew, and that's how we grew. Because unfortunately, I mean, the truth is that money runs the engine, money and the energy of, us.
I'd like to
Um,
think of it as being fun and awareness, but that the money also sort of helped pay the bills and get everybody to make a living. I started making $500 a month. What did you guys start with?
You started with nothing. Like I
Yeah, I
started with
started with
nothing.
nothing.
We
And then
started
I
with
went to
nothing.
500 and then you took it away and said you couldn't pay me anymore.
Now everybody makes a salary. That's a big thing. That's a big thing because you can't ask someone to invest their whole day, their livelihood in something that they can't make a living doing.
We're in a place where we can provide a life for the people that
Dedicate
that
themselves.
that
Yeah.
dedicate their lives to children being able to have better lives.
Yeah.
There, that's a sentence.
I guess I want to also ask Nick and Josh both, what was your feelings about knowing that there were people who said, we have a job for you that we can pay you for today? And I know guys in your same situation who had a very hard time and may still be having a hard time finding somebody to say, we want you and we want to hire you. And, what were you must have had some feelings about that. Like maybe, well, they told me I would, and now it's really true. Nobody lied to me about this. I don't know. You talk. I have no idea what you were feeling.
Well, for me, I was out, and I was volunteering for 2 years, so there was no job opportunity when I was released from prison.
Right.
Nobody had come out of prison working with WAGs.
Mhm.
And so my first dog was Zen, and Mario, the child. I did that placement. I did the fundraisers as we previously spoke of. I think you came to me, I got out in 2011. You came to me in 2014 and said that, hey, we're opening up a new prison in Grafton. Would you be willing to run it? And I was like, yeah, sure, as long as I can leave when I go in. And
Yeah.
and I mean, it was little pay, but it was definitely worth the hours put into it. And so I was still working my typical 9 to 5 and then doing WAGs. I believe that has always been on Mondays. That may have been a Tuesdays
That
when
was
we
Tuesdays.
first started.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so Tuesdays. Um, and then now it just kind of snowballed. We're in 3 different institutions and possibly getting into some more. And so I feel happy to be able to go in and talk to guys like Nick, who has been doing this for a long time, even though he's just officially working with WAGs, I guess legitimately.
Right.
He's been working for WAGs, volunteering in a sense as well for a very long time. But I could go in there and talk to those guys and say, "Hey, listen, that you could absolutely do something." And I have people ask me all the time, "What could I do? What can I do? What can I do?" And I say, well, stay out for a little bit, get your feet on the ground, see what that looks like, and start volunteering, and then we'll go from there.
Do you remember your first day of training when we came in and out and what you said to me?
Into Grafton?
Yes.
No.
You said this was the best prison day of your life because you got to leave on the same day. You said, this is great. This is how this works. You go in and you come out on the same day. You like that. Your turn.
Just as I was thinking about it, there was a few things that came to mind. Obviously, it was a blessing to be able to, continue to work with the organization, and obviously in a different capacity now where I had, put in the work as far as training for all those years, and now to be able to see the other side of the organization and more so working with the families and stuff. And I looked at it as not only a blessing, but like a continuation and kind of like not a reward, but a reward for all the hard work I had put in. And
Sure.
obviously now getting to, work with the families and see the other side of it, it is so remarkable to actually get to see the end result of, the work that the guys put in. Yeah, and it just continues to be, with each and every different family, each and every different dog. I think it continues to open my eyes up to, the work we're doing and the lives that we are changing. So
Grateful are the moms and dads? How grateful? What kinds of conversations do they have with you two?
yeah, I mean, with me so far, I feel like it's more so a lot of questions. Like,
Yeah.
obviously very thankful. Saying, I don't know how I can thank you enough, but for me, I always reassure him that this is why we do it. We don't do it for the pat on the back. We do it. Hopefully, this dog will change your son or daughter's life in some way. So,
That's the best part for me. How about you guys?
My favorite part's just working with the guys, in all honesty. I've kind of done all of it as well. And for me, it was eye-opening as well. It was a totally different aspect working with the families. And so it gave me a lot more understanding and a path to work with the guys, understanding the other end of it. But I just enjoy working with the guys.
I think they look at you teaching them and think it's possible for them too, which is a whole other aspect. It's
Sure.
possible on the other side to do this with us or do it on your own or whatever that might be, but they own those things you teach them, and that's a really special thing.
I know you've gotten that a lot. Do you feel that a lot?
Yeah, the guys, I definitely get a lot of positive feedback and a lot of desire to do better, do something positive, just as they have been with WAGS and continue to do something positive when they're released, if that's the WAGS or something else. I think that gives them a good reward to help others. So it's definitely nice. Do you have a favorite thing?
I like every aspect of it just because I like to do different things too. I mean, I like working with the guys in the prison. I like
Is
the
there like a
family
favorite
picnics.
moment that you can think of? Or like you've been with us, we've been doing this for so long, you have to have
A
like,
couple favorites.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to just pick one, I don't know. I mean, of course, AJ is one of my most
I was
memorable
gonna say
because
that.
I fostered AJ and I
Yeah.
fostered AJ for like 7 months and it was like my first real foster. And I don't know if you remember, Wendy, but you kept to saying, "Hey, I'm gonna come get AJ." And I'm like, next week, next week,
Next
next
week,
week.
next week. Yes, I
And, I
do.
mean, that
The
was a
first
hard one
one's
to
the
let go.
hardest. It was for me too. It was for
Yeah,
me too.
yeah. And
The first
my
one's the
daughter was
hardest.
only 4 and she didn't forgive me for a very long time, even
No.
though I was able to include her in every part of it. I think that I thought it would be more helpful, which I'm sure it was in the long run to say, not look at, look at the kid that's, getting this dog
Right.
and look what this dog's going to do for him. And he got to meet Miles, which Miles, I think was the same age as her at the time.
Yeah.
And,
It was
I mean,
special.
it
That one
was,
was,
it was. And I
that
mean,
one
since
was.
then, to think off the top of my head, I think every family at some point in time has a special moment. And maybe
Sure.
it's not the first day, maybe it's not the first week, but they all at some point in time send you that message of, oh my gosh,
Oh my gosh.
this just happened.
Yeah.
And, it seems something so little to us, but to them is a huge milestone.
Sure. Sure. It's what they dreamed of. And getting
Yeah.
the thing you dream of is enormous. It's just enormous. I know.
What's your guys' favorite or part or moment? You guys didn't express
Well,
that.
I think one of my favorites honestly was Courtney and Micah. But though I don't know if I could agree more with what Lisa just said.
Yeah.
You guys know that I come from a very personal place with all this because I always feel like I can relate to the kids in every single situation because of my epilepsy. And so I always come from a very empathetic place when I'm talking to each one of these kids. And especially when they have a background of epilepsy, even though that's not something that we train for, I somehow always find myself in like a half an hour conversation with these parents. So when I somehow get to repurpose what my life has been in some way, that is endlessly meaningful
Yeah.
to me.
But
But
I think in some way, the personal connection each of us has, whether it's through the prison experience as an inmate, whether it's because of a challenge medically of our own, because it's a dog breeder who has known that, you know, it's not your dog anymore. You don't, it has another purpose. It's not going to be a pet. It's going to be the highest thing this dog can be, which is of service.
yeah.
And yeah.
And there are examples of that all along the way, like training the dog Miles that was named after Miles. Or,
Yeah.
I mean, Courtney was meaningful to me because it was the first person that I sat next to that really had an invisible disability. And I'm going, oh, this has a bigger meaning. Like that's when it really hit me.
Yeah.
This is larger than not just task training of it, but that moment of personal connection for each of us. I think that's only what touched me. Beyond this just being something that I signed on to do with my parents. It was that hit me in the heart.
So ask me about retirement.
How fun was that for you?
Live long and prosper, kids.
Just before COVID, you ditched
your
me
favorite.
too.
I'll
Handing
never
it
be
over.
retired. It is my heart that you all continue to do this. And I thank you every day internally
Well,
that you've kept it alive.
what do you guys want for your birthday? What's your wish?
Oh, good. 20 more.
$1 million.
Yeah, 20 more.
Well, that.
I'll work on it.
Okay, so here's what you all need to work for. Ready? When I started this, all those years ago, I wanted the sound to be a dog a month, 12 dogs a year, placed in a kid's home. And we're so close. We're really close. So let's all push for that. A dog a month. How great does that sound? That's a birthday wish.
Nick,
So happy birthday, everybody.
Yeah.
20 years.
Thank you for being part of my family. I love you guys.
Happy birthday.
okay.
Happy birthday. Okay.